When I started teaching at Gilmore Academy in the fall of 2011, we didn't have a learning management system in place. I had an all-online project that I wanted to use in my class, so I created a Google site to support this project. A link to the archive project page is available in the resources section below this video. The project went really well and proved to be a valuable learning experience for my students. However, as the school year went on, I was having a hard time getting makeup work to my students. My school has a large hockey program with several teams that travel almost every weekend. So 3 out of my 15 students in each section were missing class 1 or 2 days every week. It was becoming tedious to write up emails, attach the worksheets, and send them all the instructions that they needed to make up class. So to my Google site, I added a homework log where I wrote up the homework for every class, and that way anyone who missed any class knew exactly what they needed to make up. This proved to also be a valuable resource. All this took place in the first semester of the class that I taught. Then, in October, my school implemented a learning management system administered by Finalsite. However, I already had built my whole online project on the Google site, so I didn't switch my online home to the LMS, but rather just created a message in the learning management system instructing visitors to go to the Google site instead. I used the system for 2 semesters before changing the project to include a message board component, which was administered through the LMS. However, I left the homework log and calendar on the Google site. During the end of course evaluations, during each semester that I taught, about 85% of my students said the Google site was paramount to their success in my class. Therefore, this was a learning tool I wanted to continue using. Throughout this whole process, I was curious about the affinities and constraints of each system and how learning was impacted through these 2 different models. I've done a lot of reading on the subject of open education resources, and I've now come to the conclusion that while I like the secure message board functionality of a password-protected learning management system, the greater accessibility provided by the open site was more valuable for my blended classroom. It is because of this process that I wanted to share it with you about my journey back and forth between the school-provided learning management system and Google Sites. This ultimately turned into a discussion of accessibility, where and when and how my students could access the information in my class, and also how easy it was to share the resources with other people, whether I was sending it in an email to a parent who didn't necessarily have access to the learning management system, or giving the web address to a prospective employer who wanted to see a live version of my course. So let's get started with the standards. For students, the use of a classroom website teaches students how to use digital tools to gather and use information. While it may seem obvious that students would know that going to a certain website gives them certain information, the process of integrating this into their schoolwork routine and using this as a troubleshooting tool is something that comes from practice. Also, students learn to interpret common navigation systems and build their understanding of how searching for information really works when they use the same system repeatedly and extensively. Just as we learn how to really use email through using email, our students have to go through this same process of enculturation into internet practices as well. And a class website that they access routinely and know that that's where they can go for answers is a way to do this. While a learning management system or a Google Sites web home for your class meets all of the Nets for Teachers standards, specifically the use of a classroom website is an opportunity for teachers to participate in the global creation and utilization of resources. A classroom website gives teachers an authentic reason to create classroom documents that are web-friendly, and because of this, they are more likely to share their successes with other teachers since it's so easy to just email a web link to your class website. Also, it reminds teachers about how often our students face fair use and privacy-sensitive situations, creating an authentic context for teachers to explicitly address these areas. This brings us to the question, which is better, a password-protected and fully supported learning management system or an open access but do-it-yourself website such as Google Sites? This brings up 2 issues, universal access and the sharing of education resources. The whatever, whenever, wherever model more focuses on universal accessibility. If my student realizes at 8 p.m. on Sunday night that they have something due for class, I want them to be able to pull up my page from their smartphone while still sitting on the couch. This way that I'll do it later factor is greatly reduced. And if next year or 5 years from now, a student is putting together a project for another class and remembers one of the resources we used in my class, I want them to be able to type what they remember into Google and find the specific resource. My specific resource. I want them to have access to everything that we used in class so that they can have that whenever they need it. WWW means students can access information wherever they are on an internet-capable device on a site that is optimized for whichever platform they're on. It means they can access whatever they need or want and aren't constrained by passwords or access to a group the computer might not remember that they belong to. It means that they can access the information at 3 a.m. the night before a project is due or 5 years after they have left the class. To learn more about these concepts, watch the video Pay Attention listed under references below. Also, the idea of open education resources goes along with the technology movement for open source technology. However, it goes against the traditional intellectual property considerations that come with research. Because of this, the open education resource movement has had to situate itself carefully in the education world. Take a second and read the definition of OER, Open Education Resources, as explained by the Hewlett Foundation. This brings us to the question of why would you use open education resources? Why would we create them rather than keeping our intellectual property safe for ourselves so that we could maybe one day make a profit? Having a place to go to find quality teaching resources saves teachers time so that they can get more done with the precious time that they have. And their teachers having access to these resources allows the students to learn from lessons that have been tested in other classrooms. No more is every teacher all on their own. Now that you understand where this project is coming from, let's take a look at what Google Sites actually looks like in comparison to a traditional learning management system.